This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Yvonne Fry, CEO of Workforce Development Partners. Yvonne, thanks for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Mark. I'm delighted to join you today.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about leadership and different things you've done in your career, but I think like some other guests we've had on From the Corner Office podcast, your title doesn't really do a lot to define who you are. You and I have known each other probably 10, 12 years, and you've always been just a really big economic development person in Hillsborough County, and I'm sure other counties that I'm not even aware of. But start with Workforce Development Partners. Tell us what that is and how you got into that organization.
Well, and I appreciate that. You're very kind with your words. All of what I hope my life's work is building strong communities. And that's what economic development is. That's what led to kind of the unexpected work that I get to enjoy every day, which is Workforce Development Partners. It's a nonprofit based in, right now, only Hillsborough County, but with some conversations with surrounding counties and beyond. We have a couple different programs. We started in 2015 without a design on anything other than facilitating and doing community engagement with economic development with our schools. And what's the responsibility, what's the opportunity that we have as business leaders to come in close to our schools and help support them so that they're successful in building that workforce pipeline. And the conversations that happened with that was that one of our largest employers started in Plant City with our efforts. One of our largest employers here, a manufacturer, Hardy Manufacturing, said, we want to get in front of your seniors at the high school before they graduate. And as we furthered that conversation, we heard the stories of what now we define as disconnected youth, kids that graduate, they're floating. They're not in school, they're not gainfully employed, and bad things happen. And they said there's such quality people that come to us too late. Once they've already had those impacts of those bad decisions and that time where they're floundering. And he's like, I can't hire them. I can't fully help them and they can't help us. We need to solve this together. And so in 2015, we had a job fair and the magic happened. Our employers were so excited to be able to invest in these young lives, see their potential and light them up about what the opportunities were. And if you fast forward to today, we're the workforce development partner for the Hillsborough County School District, which is the 7th largest district in the country. And we serve all 37 high school career exceptional success centers with curriculum, experiences, and so on. And our mission through that program, Future Career Academy, is to prepare and connect students to the great jobs and training opportunities in their communities. We have a couple other things under that, but that's how it all started and lives under that umbrella of the nonprofit now, Workforce Development Partners.
Yeah, it's so important, and I wish you guys good luck in expanding to other counties because, as you know, the Business Observer covers Polk County south to Collier County, and we talk to business owners all the time, and that's what I hear, the same things you're hearing. We need a trained workforce. We need people coming in that understand both the soft skills and the hard skills and can do this job, right? I mean, it sounds like you're seeing that, right? These businesses want these employees. They need them.
They do. And not only did they speak into the genesis of this program, they have been integral all the way along. We do curriculum one day a week in their senior year of English classes. And I mean, that's a lot of curriculum. Every bit of that content has been driven by our business community. This year, our agreement with the school district has expanded. We're serving 9th through 12th grade because we were developing more curriculum and they were like, we need to assimilate this. We need to bring this in. They're so excited about it. We're serving all the kids in all the CTE classes, 9th through 12th grade now with additional curriculum. And we maintain a parking lot that every day, I mean, seriously, every day we hear from employers with kids need to know this. That's my favorite line. Kids need to know this. And we've met a lot of those foundational things soft skills is such a big piece of this. Students that are graduating now, you think about how COVID impacted them with socialization, expectations in the world, and we're helping to reframe a lot of that. And the biggest part of it is just, Mark, really getting them excited to know that there are opportunities that are a good fit for them. And that's a huge piece of this. Once we activate that hope, that belief system, how they will change their actions and be willing to lean in and really elevate what their potential is. They're very engaged. It's really exciting to see.
Yeah. So it's pretty obvious talking to you, just even this few minutes now, how passionate you are for developing and building a stronger community. And you and I have talked many times about Plant City, Hillsborough County, different areas you've been in. Where did this come from? Take us way back, Yvonne. Tell us about growing up and sort of how you found this career path, because you've done a couple marketing, you've done some different things. So kind of lead us through how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Mark, probably one of the things that people would use to describe me is pretty intense, and purposeful. And, I've always been serious minded. When I was in middle school, you'll love this. I remember in seventh grade, the Russia and Afghanistan piece, I was ready to go over there and help solve that. Like, that was my mindset.
Should have done it. It would have been great.
Well,
Ambassador Fry.
there you go. So I think I've always had an ear, a heart for, where are the gaps and how do we all step up? And I'm the one that, I do this and I encourage others, put your hand in the air and say, how can I help? I think that's really important. I think that that's always been a driver for me, that there's a lot of potential and we all have a responsibility to improve and leave everybody and everything in our path better than we found it. So, in my case, I started out as a farmer's daughter. I came from pretty humble beginnings, and I never want to forget that. I never want to forget some of the challenges, some of the anxiety. I look at what kids especially are dealing with today, and honestly, it's nothing new. It's very exacerbated, but it's all the common human experience. And the more that we can really reach out and connect with them and so on. I mean, they're our future. That's what we've got to do. And I just never forget where I came from. Some of the things that have been challenges to me, and wanting to build bridges, wanting to now as a woman, a little more mature in life, I'm in rooms that people don't even know exist, let alone how to get there. And that's all, I look at, we've just got a huge responsibility in this, and life is very short.
Yeah. Did you grow up working on a farm?
I did. My parents moved to Plant City in 1955. We joke that we're still kind of newcomers here because there's such a legacy community here.
Very
it's
true.
beautiful.
That's such a Florida statement. Yes.
Yeah. And my parents had 60,000 chickens. We picked eggs every day. They do lay 7 days a week. And that was all, by hand at the time. We also grew strawberries and had cattle and all the rest of the row crops throughout the year. And, that way of life it really ingrained a lot of things into me. The full circle of life too, if you will.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's up to me and you. I'll never forget, we had a fire on the farm in the cooler for the chicken farm and where we stored the eggs. We had a fire one night, and out in the Cork area, there was no formalized or even informal fire department. And as a result, you get on the phone, and there was a party line back then, and you put the word out, and all the neighbors came to help put the fire out and then help recover. And my dad and several of his friends then helped form the Cork Knights Volunteer Fire Department. And I saw things like that from an early age of how just neighbors help neighbors, and you formalize things and you build structure and address needs. And to me, what else do we do? Yep. That's it. So yeah, I'm a farmer's daughter through and through.
That's so awesome. And it shows right in your work ethic, and you can talk about it to other, obviously, teenagers. And I know you have, I think at least you have two kids, or you have a teenage daughter. I remember we talked, you have two.
I have two. Yeah. Okay. My son is 20. He's almost 26. He's working for Habitat for Humanity over in Pinellas for Mike Sutton, and awesome. Loving his work there. And then my daughter, she's 18. She's in her second year at NYU studying film and television. And she loves the city. And, I may have lost her to that.
Well, and we'd have to do a separate podcast on this because our son, my wife and I's son, Aaron, he NYU film school is his dream. So
Oh,
we will see if that dream comes true. He's
we
a
need to
junior in
talk.
high school, so we have some time. But okay, so
Yeah.
you've done all, you grew up here in this area and you've done things. What projects have you worked on that really stand out to you in terms of economic development, growth, and connecting people with these opportunities you talked about?
Yeah. So economic development is a big word that people, we use it in a lot of different ways. And for us as a community in Plant City, we have always had a really strong chamber, and that serves its purpose. And I mean, it's I can't even remember how long ago, but maybe 10 years ago or so, we started having community conversations around the growth that was coming and how do we manage that growth? How do we build for smart sustainable growth? How do we as a community make sure that we continue to maintain a sense of identity and character and charm and the values that we care about? And again, that's the benefit of this community. People roll up their sleeves and say, we're gonna figure this out. We not that we're experts in it, but we're gonna figure it out together, shoulder to shoulder. And starting our economic development corporation, there was a group of us that started to have those conversations and cast a vision for what was possible here, still maintaining our great relationship with the Tampa, at the time, Tampa Hillsborough EDC, thinking about how we fit in the region. But we have a unique value proposition. And so, building through that to really define that. And my marketing communications firm was involved from the very beginning, in leadership and in service to building that out. And it's been a very dynamic process. You've seen what's happened in Plant City. And, is there bumps in the road? Of course, we continue to try to do the best that we can with the interest here, honoring the rights of landowners that have an asset, and then thinking about what are the best uses of land and with approvals and things like that, and facilitating growth, again, smart and sustainable growth that serves this community and honors who we are and its great citizens here. So there's been a variety of things that have been huge game changers. You drive on I-4 and you look at city furniture. That's such a visual aspect of things. But they've come in and been an incredible corporate citizen. I'll reference just recently with the recent Hurricane Milton, they turned on a dime same day and opened overnight in their warehouse to take in citizens here, and had 400 or 500 people
Really?
inside. Yes, and I just think about all the ways that they have come in and helped support our community, not only as a great employer, and so on, but many other ways that people just don't even have any idea of. There's so many stories like that with the
Yeah.
companies that are here. We're grateful for.
Well, definitely. And City Furniture has such an interesting and unique company culture. I've written read a decent amount about them, and that's really great to hear that they open themselves up that way. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your leadership things you've learned. What as you've grown through all these different roles that you've had, what's some leadership advice you've gotten that stands out in your mind?
Um, so as a woman in business, I think about my mom was widowed when my father died when I was in elementary school. And I watched my mom, you know, running the farm, also went into a very successful real estate career and so on, and saw that my sister is about 20 years older than I am, and she's had an incredible career in real estate and development first, and then came in and bought out a large food manufacturer. I don't know if you remember Crystals International here in Plant
Okay.
City.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she owned that, built that,
Oh
sold
wow.
that, and has continued to reinvent herself. And from early on, I've had such strong women in my life who have broken a lot of glass barriers, so that things that I take for granted, they really pace through. And I got to see that. I got to see my sister in the 70s and 80s in real estate, and what she did with a huge office and so on was unheard of.
Yeah.
But to me, I took it for granted. And I've had a pattern of other strong women in my life. Certainly I don't leave men out, because it's, we all are striving together, and we all have to be adjacent and helping each other. None of us live on an island, but that was some of those early ones. And then, I'll also point out, people know me, and think of, Eastern Hillsborough, conservative, what have you, and how many people cross party lines
Yeah.
and how we come together. And to me, that's something that's really, really important. Is there's so many things that affect all of us, at the kitchen table, that
Yep.
if we can sit down and talk about things, again, to what I mentioned in the very beginning, how do we build strong communities? And there's been so many influential people in public service that have been really, really great partners to me, and helped me with a lot of projects and things like that. So, the list is very long,
Yeah.
Mark. And I'm at the point in life where I'm very, very intentional about reaching back, because, it all is supposed to come full circle.
Sure.
And that's a big part of that. And there's people that I see that I'm so optimistic about our future, not just those high schoolers, but people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are incredible leaders. And I would say our region and the outlook is very, very bright, considering what is coming behind us, as we get a little bit more mature. I'm counting you in that group too there, Mark.
Excellent. As long as you don't count me in the group with young, I'm not in that group. Okay, so what speaking of leadership, what are the characteristics that sort of stand out to you about good leaders? And I'm curious specifically because you have sort of two sides, right? You've seen this with clients and companies that have expanded or redeveloped or done projects that you're aware of and worked with, but then you've also run your own organizations where you have to be a leader and have leaders. So that all said, what are some leadership characteristics that are important to you when sizing up good leaders?
I think integrity is number one, and is something that hopefully you can take for granted in that space, but we all know you can't. I think leaders are gifted with different types of things, and that there's always the right leader in the right season. Sometimes you need a visionary. Sometimes you need,
Good
somebody
point.
that's really pushing, and so on. And being mindful of that, of that, it's not one size fits all, and that we as leaders have to grow, adapt, and respond. And hopefully, it is a very robust journey. That one of the things with me is I want to continue to grow. And I've always embraced the mindset that if you think about the growth that happens between 0 and 10 years old, think about from the time the baby's first born to what they do, and language,
Sure.
on and on. 10 to 20 is almost the same sort. If we can embrace that type of growth every decade and challenge ourselves, many times by the time we're 20, we're pretty stagnant.
Yeah.
And if you how all the ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those ways continue to grow, those are some signs of great leaders who will continue to have impact, because sometimes people peak, and they have a moment in time.
Yeah.
And if you start with that integrity piece, that character, and then are willing and able to be very uncomfortable at times, to me, those are things that I find, I respect, and certainly want to be about.
Yeah, no, the willingness to be uncomfortable and try new things at any age in your career. I'll do a little humble brag. I had this podcast idea for 3 or 4 years on my goals every year top. I was start podcasts because as in the role that I'm in, I have access to people like you that are I find these really interesting, compelling, and articulate leaders. And I'm like, well, they have really good stories to share, but like anything else, you have to be uncomfortable because I didn't know how to start a podcast, and so you got to do it, right? You just got to step in and do it.
Yeah. And Mark, what I'll point out in that the rest of that story is it's all through team members. You look at how you assembled that, and Reed that's a part of this, and relying on other folks and being able to empower and support them. That's how you get things done every single time. It's never because you are the total source on all of it. It is through and with other people. And that's a powerful piece of that.
100%. It takes a village. You're referring to our off-camera producer Reed Corley, who is amazing and has
Awesome.
been my partner through all of this. So
Yeah.
thanks to him. Okay, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. Tell us about a setback in your career that stands out that you learned from? Again, I look at you as because you've done so many interesting and different things. What didn't go right that you look back on and learned from?
I'll be really vulnerable on this one because usually I skip over what I'm gonna share about
Yes,
in
vulnerability.
regards
Yes.
in regards to this question. I ran for public office, and it would have seemed that the path was very straightforward. It was kind of almost ordained, if you will, and I didn't prevail, and it was one of the hardest times of my life,
Yeah.
because I felt like reputation and your track record and all those things mattered, and in this case, it didn't, and they were obliterated. And if you look at how that divergent path turned out, what I'm getting to do at this point with kids and the impact that I have is incredible and is exactly what was meant for me.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that who was my opponent at that time, Lawrence McClure. He and I are very close friends. There's an incredible trust relationship there. He's a huge advocate for what we're doing
Yeah.
with students, and the ability to work past something and trust and not stay stuck, or not use that as an excuse for anything. But really, if you're called to impact in life, you want to be found faithful in whatever is right in front of you. And it's not a title, it's not a position. Each of us have an opportunity every single day to have such an impact. And I would just challenge people to say, embrace that.
Yeah.
And there's not a you've arrived or somebody taps you or this or that. It's you've got to see the opportunity and you've got to make it happen.
Credit. Yeah. Well, credit to you on two fronts. One, being able to talk about that and having the perseverance to overcome that time and part in your life. And two, credits for running for office. That is not easy. You are putting yourself out there. And we're recording this before election day
Oh,
2024. And so you'll be listening to this after election day. But it's hard to run for office. You really, especially in the way social media is today, you are putting yourself out there in a big way.
yeah. And I'm so grateful for those that are willing to serve, knowing what it was about to go through that process. And it's just gotten continuously worse. But folks that are willing to serve our community, none of us are perfect. And it seems like it's also mired at this point, but it's
Yeah.
not. There are good people in office and in the process, and we have to believe in that process, and we all have to partake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I've landed, and I'm really grateful.
Well,
And as a woman of faith, I'll say one more thing: as a woman
yeah,
of faith, I'm called to pray for and support those, no matter who's in office, and to that be part of it. And I think that us continuing as a country to figure out how we come together, and as that starts neighbor to neighbor, that starts in our own backyard. And that there exists a lot of opportunity there right now. And there's a lot of work to be done. We just have to get together and do it.
for sure. You talked before about, the different issues that come up and not being so super hyper partisan. Affordable housing is not a partisan issue, right? We all want that as a good community. Okay, before we get to these rapid fire questions, one last question about you. As we're coming to the end of 2024, what's next for you? What are you looking forward to, whether personally or with workforce development partners next year, 2025?
Yeah, it's hard to believe how quickly this year has gone, and how full it's been. We are in conversations with some surrounding counties for expansion of our program, and want to do that with incredible fidelity and making sure that we're serving those communities in the right way that meets the needs of their students. So those are really exciting conversations, and we believe that that's going to come to fruition. There's folks that have seen this, and I've got calls from all over the country. I've got employers from all over the country asking us to move to their state, and we're going to do that in a really measured way, and make sure that the impact and the value for everybody involved, the employers, students, and so on, is there. And I'm really excited to continue to tackle that growth. I think that 2025 holds a lot of promise for our region. We're going to have on December 5th a workforce summit. This is our second annual of these. We're hosting it at Feeding Tampa Bay, who's a great partner of ours, and talking about resiliency, talking about what are the lessons learned from these storms, And then where do we find ourselves? What does that forecast look like? And what are the activation points? And I think one of the things that we're going to see kind of globally is how we as a community become more strategic, less siloed, and working together exponentially for the outcomes that are important for those that are in this region. So those are things that kind of on the business, but also kind of the global scale that I'm looking forward to. I'm always a glass half full. And
Love
it's
it.
about to be running over. So everybody bring your buckets because there's plenty. And
Yes.
there is going to be abundance.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. 3 rapid fire questions. This is just top of mind for you. Okay. What is the most used app on your phone?
Messages.
Got it. How many hours of sleep do you require a night to not be cranky the next day?
At least 5.
5. Good for you, Yvonne. You're killing it. High energy. I like it. Beach or mountain vacation, which do you prefer?
Mountain, and I'm going to tell you the rest of it. It needs to have running water. Like I'd love the river down below. I want the sound. I want covered with trees and lots of shade, but I want to hear the sound and lots of nature. So definitely the mountains for me.
Mountains. All right. You got the Airbnb picked out, or at least the requirements for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yvonne Fry, CEO of Workforce Development Partners. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.